Greg Page, virtualization, like the term cloud, means different things to different people. What's your definition of virtualization?
Virtualization for me is a technological capability that crosses the whole of the data center effectively, from everything from compute, to networking, to storage, and essentially virtualization allows you to decouple a capability, as I've aforementioned, from the underlying hardware. And the result, this is called abstraction, commonly referred to as, and this allows us some flexibility in how we can deploy and rearrange in a logical way these services. So we can optimally deploy those services in regards to the service posture required for particular workloads, but also from optimization and utilization of the infrastructure itself.
You mentioned services, but what services exactly are we talking about?
So we have sort of compute services, network services and storage, but we can also network services themselves. So policy enforcement points would be included. Okay, things like firewalls, load balancers, they may be physical or virtual in their entity. Essentially, what you're doing is you want to arrange them into what we call a service chain, effectively. Okay, and that service chain will be spread across the infrastructure to supply a workload, a business term for an application, with the right level of services that it requires to be compliant to regulatory requirements. So essentially the service chain helps us deliver service posture and service security posture as well.
If a company goes down this route, what benefits will virtualization bring?
Well, I think it's really managing risk. Okay, so a lot of the time we talk about cloud in terms of cost savings. What we don't talk about is risk management. And then depending on your, where your business is and which vertical, you will be subjected to different regulatory requirements. I mean, the most stringent being government, and next would be financial, for example. And you go across verticals to some verticals, maybe IT, for example, isn't quite so stringent in terms of the regulatory requirements. But things like SOC, Sarbanes-Oxley, things like this, also demand capabilities within the business to enforce compliance, if you wish. So effectively using management tools and techniques to manage a virtual and physical environment together to produce that sort of holistic service posture, if you wish. So maintaining governance over through IT tools and management.
But what's the difference, if any, between virtualization and cloud computing?
Well, what defines cloud is probably the best way to start with that one. For me, first of all, self-service. So rather than an end user having to ring up an IT help desk or service desk and say, oh, can I have something, or send an email off to someone, what you can actually do is that customer now can interface with a web interface. The second thing really is sort of near real-time delivery of those services. I say near real-time, it doesn't have to be in real time, but within 15 minutes, half an hour, etc., for those services to be deployed. Now, in many cases, this requires automation, but not just typical automation that you find today with scripting and so forth, which is very task-orientated. You're really talking about intelligent automation now. And intelligent automation is something we would summarize that as orchestration. So those are the first two. The third part of cloud computing for me would be metering the usage of assets, IT assets by a customer, and then applying the rating and the billing to that. Okay, and the fourth one would be you can access those those services over a network. It could be the internet, as an example of Amazon EC2, or it could be over a virtual private network supplied by a service provider like Verizon or AT&T, etc.
Where is virtualization happening today? Who is employing it? And where is there room for future growth?
Virtualization simply is happening everywhere. Right? It's happening in the data center, in the wide area network, and then endpoint devices as well that access the contents. Further on, beyond that, you have virtualization of applications and virtualization of data itself. So we're extending those capabilities. So this is all about how the delivery, changing the delivery model of applications and data to various different types of endpoints.
What would you say is the biggest challenge that cloud is facing today?
A cloud platform is absolutely business transformation. And the reason for that is we're shifting from aligning IT with business to integrating IT and business processes together. And that's why it's transformation. So the sort of the collateral damage, if you wish, or the implications rather, of doing that have to be carefully considered. Considered from a end-to-end process point of view, from an organization point of view, what your teams, how they're structured, are they service-orientated rather than technology-orientated and so forth. All of these sort of considerations, what the supply chain even looks like. How do I speed up delivery of new infrastructure to support a more real-time environment? So this brings in things like integrated compute stacks. And a good example of that would be the FlexPod from Cisco, NetApp and VMware.
Greg Page, thank you very much indeed.